Welcome to the bold analysis. The Nairobi team, led by the Commander-in-Chief, William Samoei Arap Ruto, must a matter of urgency tread careful, looking at the backlash and the protest note coming from Burkina Faso days after Nairobi hosted the AFRICOM boss Michael Langley, who is actually emerging as the greatest enemy of Traore. And Ibrahim Traore is an unhappy man with the President William Ruto. We are going to delve deep into this, why Kenya must tread very careful. But first, take a minute and let's support this objective. We are here with my team in Shinyalu to help Granny Deborah. As you can see, she suffered burnt. So she's epileptic. At that age, she's epileptic. So one day, some time back it came, she fell on a fire and suffered the burns. So when you arrived, we sent my girls to go and check. They checked and she was in pain.
Hey. Hapata ni uchungu.
Naumia. Toi mkono hii kwanza. Toi mkono kwanza.
Inauma na ndani, ama inauma na ndani. Hii mkono before ulikuwa unabeba tu mzuri.
Alikuwa anakaa kama chomeka.
Alikuwa tu sawa lakini sasa hivi huwezi.
As I promised today, so you can see these photos, we took her to Mukumu Hospital. People who come from Kakamega know where Mukumu Hospital is. We took her there and several tests are done. Chest x-ray, ECG, and ultrasound is done also for mguu. If you check mguu zake zimefura. Apart from what we had seen, mguu zake, this is, I think you had not seen this, mguu zake zimefura. So, apparently, Shosh, this thing happened last year. 6 months since Anguke, I think that was in December, 6 months since she suffered the burns did not dry up. And that's why now they're turning to very dangerous wounds. But we are here. The other tests that are still needed, that will still be done, there are some more tests that will still be done tomorrow that will make sure are done so that Shosh is treated. Meanwhile, this is her place. Apart from to make sure she's treated, we want that by the time she will leave the hospital coming home, she will find a place to sleep. This was her place. And this house was destroyed when it rained. And after it rained, it was destroyed. And she was now forced kutoka to go and spend into a son's house. The tragedy of it all is even the son got involved in an accident and is the gentleman there in scratches. So the son got involved in an accident and cannot even offer support. And that is the only son that now she had there. So her situation is a bit technical, but we are here to respond to this distress. And I want to say thank you. Thank you for your 50, for your 2 bob. I am glad. I saw people sending as little as 3 shillings, as little as 5 shillings. That is it. Now we believe you can do it. We've started the process today. These are the wounds. We are doing the polls. We're ready to shanza kukata. From tomorrow, another team will be the hospital. Construction will start. So participate, contribute as what you can get. We really need a lot so that she can be treated and we can also do the house. Recently, on 28th May, Kenya hosted 2025 African Chiefs of Defense Conference in Nairobi. And during this event, General Langley attended. The general is the person seated in this photo, is that general seated next to Kahariri, CDF Kahariri. General Langley And his presence in Kenya brought a bit of backlash because way back, sometime last month, he appeared in the US Senate and attacked Ibrahim Traore, the Burkina Faso president, saying that Burkina Faso president is just misusing and is greedily using the gold proceeds just to support, to make sure that he protects his junta government that is benefiting himself from the gold proceeds by making sure that he pays the soldiers that are protecting him and his bodyguards. A statement that actually sparked a wave of protest across the world, with the continent loyally saying, did the US want to take out Traore, as what had happened to the former Libyan president. I've forgotten the name. Someone should tell me the name in the comment section. This gentleman who was taken from Libya. Yes, I've forgotten the name. And while in Nairobi, the Michael Langley was interviewed by Yvonne Okwara by Citizen TV, and he was asked this question. And this is what he responded.
All right, so it's about countries perhaps taking up their own autonomy. General, let's talk about countries taking on their own autonomy. You are on African soil, not for the first time, but this would be a good moment to ask about one of the countries that has taken its own autonomy, and that's Burkina Faso. Yeah. Your remarks recently at the Senate seem to suggest that he's diverting, General Traore, is diverting its 4 billion gold reserves to sustain his military rule rather than for public welfare. These remarks sparked widespread condemnation across the continent. What did you mean by that statement?
Let me speak to Burkina Faso's sovereignty. They maintain their sovereignty. They make their decisions how they use their resources. They make their decisions who their resources go to for military support. That's their sovereign right. But my cautionary tale was just from a military perspective. That was a Senate Armed Services Committee asking me a direct question. Burkina Faso, a lot of great things going on to progress them forward, okay? But then when you look at the military part of it, knowing that that's the epicenter of global terrorism, it was my time to illuminate that this is probably their weakest point, and there needs to be sufficient resources going towards for the whole fight of terrorism in that country. Period. They make their decisions, though. That's their sovereignty, their sovereign right to make their decisions, what is appropriate, what's not. But I wanted to illuminate that it's going in the wrong direction now. ISIS is getting stronger. JNIM is getting stronger. Al-Qaeda in the lands of the Maghreb is getting stronger in that country.
And do you think it's getting stronger after General Traore took over?
It has. Just look at the numbers of attacks. It really has, since 2022. I've been tracking this since I took command. So, no ill will towards him, but the decisions is their own. They're looking for other ways to be able to, they're still on warfighting footing. It's just going to take more resources. So
you stand by that statement? Because there's been pressure on you to walk those statements back.
That's my statement. That's my assessment. That is getting worse. More needs to be done for not just local, but whole of country, because of these violent extremist organizations are seeking revenue. They're seeking resources, they're seeking recruiting from the Burkinabe people, and they're seeking refuge within their country. That threatens their sovereignty.
And that threatens America's interest?
Say again?
Does that then threaten America's interests?
Yes, thank you for asking that. Because especially ISIS, and of course in East Africa is inextricably linked all the way to ISIS West Africa, ISIS Sahel, and there's going to be probably a move afoot for them to move and seek refuge within the line. So we have shared objectives. And
so he maintains his stand by what he said in the US. Now, upon understanding that when Burkina Faso realized that Michael Langley was going to attend the conference in Nairobi, despite of them being invited, they skipped the Nairobi conference. They actually didn't attend that conference on 28th May. It was held in Nairobi. And I've listened to what he says. Of course, he's been accused, and there's been a problem. There's been this allegation that Michael Langley, while he pretends to protect the interests of the continent, but is actually pursuing military interests of America. And you know the paradox of it all? It is very sad that United States of America is using a black man to speak against African men. And this is a well choreographed thing, and that has been emerging. That while Michael Langley is representing America, the black man from America being used to fight the African, in UK there is this Kemi Badenoch, who is the conservative leader, the leader of the Conservative Party in UK since 2024. Now, I believe that much as he pretends, and when he makes this statement, says that Burkinabe have the sovereign right to decide on how they will use their resources, but America is uncomfortable by the fact that they are being edged out of that scramble. Traore, 4 days later, dispatched a team of his Security Council to Nairobi, and I want us to look at what the State House team posted. Kenya and Burkina Faso have cordial relationships that have fostered strong bilateral ties, including diplomacy, trade, cultural exchange, and cooperation in other areas of mutual interest. This was posted by the president's team. Met Burkina Faso National Council of State Security, President Amarou Yabre, State House, Nairobi. He brought a message of goodwill from President Ibrahim Traore. What's emerging is what they're saying is message of goodwill is actually a protest note from Burkina Faso, from Ibrahim Traore, looking at what transpired in Nairobi 4 days earlier. Remember, the statements from Michael Langley brought a lot of backlash. It brought backlash, and there were protests all over the country, all over the continent, in different parts of the world. Protests were organized in different parts of the world, while local loyalists of the continent were actually calling out America in what they term as meddling with African affairs. So contrary to it, and if you look at this photo, you can just see who is there. That is the president, that is the NIS boss, and that is the head of Security Council from Burkina Faso. And this has been a matter within the corridors. President Ruto must be wary of the Western powers that are now scrambling for the continent and they have devised tools to put the continent in a cage, tools that act as traps. And I think no one puts it better than PLO Lumumba whenever he gets the microphone.
We'll elect our governors. We'll have our ministers. That will happen, but they are not bothered. After we have elected them, you'll then see them sending their arrows ahead. You'll see Bill Gates come and meet your president. You'll see Tony Blair come and meet your president. You'll see Macron come and meet your president. You'll see all of them. And then they will never admit, but they'll be told, if you want money in agriculture, behave this way. If you want money in this area, behave this way. They will never tell that to the Chinese. They will never tell that to the Indians. They will never tell that to the Vietnamese. They will never tell that to the Koreans, but in Africa, they tell us. That is why, as I speak to you now, under this new scramble, the IMF and the World Bank are back, telling you who to hire in your universities, what to sell and what not to sell. It is a sad situation. So today, as I look at Africa in that new scramble, the Chinese are here. I hope that this institution was not built by the Chinese. The Turks are here. The British are here. The French are here. The Qataris are here. The Americans are here. This time round, they are so subtle that we don't even recognize them, but they control us. What are we going to do about it in order to develop? We must do something. And if we don't do that thing else, you who have been trained in this institution, you have traveled the world. You have traveled Nigeria.
And one of the tools being used to destabilize, being used by imperialists, is to stabilize government. And that is why there have been fears of Traore being taken out. Now, the guy you forget is Gaddafi. Ruto inviting African boss, of course, the African boss attacking Traore in the Kenyan soil is actually perceived as part of, as part of the continent. And it's believed that probably through that platform, Michael Langley, who is the leader at the head of United States US African Military Command, is actually pushing for that. But I think as a country, we must tread very careful, because look at, Traore represents, embodies, I think that is the word. Traore embodies the young African spirit of revolution, the awakening of the masses, of the population, that it is time for Africa to get its own identity. It's time for African resources to develop Africa. And that is why Traore is in the process of establishing the very first National Gold Reserve. The National Gold Reserve is what is supposed to go and back, is what is going to support them back their currency, and that is going to be a big booster in the economy. So the geopolitical aspects that are being taken by Michael Langley, actually they are all geared towards America getting share of it. It is not in their interest that most of that money, remember, it is not their gold, it is not the American gold. So I agree, and I associate with those who are saying that America should leave Traore and Burkina Faso people to enjoy their sovereignty. And because it is their money, they are the ones that decide how to use it, even though he masquerades there. And that is, you'll understand, that the profile of Traore in the continent has been huge. Look at the kind of reception he received in Ghana.
Honorable members, the full meaning of Burkina Faso means strong men and women of integrity. We have His Excellency Brigadier General Bryce Clotaire Oligui Nguema, the President.
And these are the things that we've been talking about. I believe President Ruto in Kenya, the Commander-in-Chief of the Republic of Kenya, should maneuver this space carefully. Trump is rolling out a wave of anti-Africa policies. Let's just look at the latest two. Majority of embassies that have been listed for closure are coming from Africa. Yes, there was some declaration about embassies, that American embassies that they want to close, that should be closed. Majority of them are from the continent of Africa. Number two, and by the way, Kenya is not one of them. Number two, recently there was also another policy given to the Harvard University to stop admitting students outside the US. I don't know whether it was from the continent of Africa or from other continents. And they're saying it is because of they want to introduce a layer of screening. And one of them is social media, a layer of screening. And that and you can match that with the aid cards, which some of us really are welcoming. You need to remember that recently there was a senator who said they threatened that they should break ties, that the Trump administration should break ties with Kenya because Kenya is dining with China. So that is why I believe this space we need to be very careful about this space. This is the moment that, if you look at the global trend, it is the moment and the hour, the second, that the continent of Africa must come together to fight for their interest and make sure that they have a huge bargaining power, even in the global space. And why am I saying that? Do you know that flying within the continent of Africa is more expensive than even going to some European countries? In fact, another gentleman was telling me that flying to Togo, there are some West African countries that for you to go, you must go to Europe and get a flight back to Africa. Yes, people who are flying, you can give us these testimonials. That it's so dire that, and why is it made that way? The people in the aviation sector have to ensure it is that way so that Africa cannot hold together. And I believe that Kenya must associate with the aggression, with the American aggression towards Traore. It is not a conflict, it is not a space. And the spirit of that letter is something that cannot be taken casually. We are a bit casual about some factors, and I think Kenya must make sure they are not part of this aggression. Why? America is looking at a wider range of avenues to take out Traore, be it the big sin or even a coup d'etat. We should not be seen to be party to such a destabilizing scheme. The second thing here is stamping out our command in the continent is slowly coming down. Remember, we tried to bring the candidature of Raila Odinga to the continent, and we were told no, thank you. These are some of the compounding factors that contribute to such aggression that Kenya received. The third aspect is Africa is undergoing a generational transition, being branded and being seen as a US puppet can actually prop up revolt against a president in an African country. Africa is going that direction. The young population are looking for their rights and they want their own, the sovereignty of the state. So continue being seen as a puppet doesn't really work well. And you also, of course, in the long run, even in the economic front, we understand that aligning single-handedly with one, probably even it's America, does not work fully because of, infrastructure and development interests of the continent. And I believe that protest letter must be taken seriously, because if we are saying Burkina Faso is getting territorial threats through terrorism, then is Kenya isolated? Because Kenya, we also have peripheral enemies on the other side of Sudan and even from the side of Somalia. So we must really get it right. And I believe, yes, it is not our fault that we laid red carpet for Michael Langley. However, the spirit of the protest from Traore is something that should be taken care of keenly. Thank you.